Look at a map of North America. It seems almost like a geographical mistake, doesn't it? A massive landmass split by a straight line that spans thousands of miles. To many, it seems inevitable that these two nations, sharing a language, a continent, and a history, should have been one single country. In 1776, the founding fathers of the United States didn't just want 13 colonies, they wanted it all. They invited Canada, they pleaded with Canada, and when that failed, they invaded Canada. But as we know, the map stayed divided. Why? Why did the people of the North choose a distant British king over a neighboring American president? Why did the 14th colony refuse to join the Revolution? Today, we dive into the untold secrets of the American Revolution, the forgotten battles in the snow, and the religious tension that ensured Canada would never become the 14th state. This is the story of how the United States almost conquered the North and why they failed. To understand why Canada isn't the 51st state today, we have to go back to a time when American and Canadian weren't even identities yet. They were all just British subjects. When the Continental Congress met in Philadelphia in 1774, they didn't just see themselves as 13 rebels. They saw themselves as the leaders of British North America. In fact, the Articles of Confederation, the first constitution of the U.S., actually included a pre-approved invitation for Quebec, then known as Quebec in Nova Scotia, to join the Union at any time. No vote needed, just show up. But Canada didn't show up. To the Founding Fathers, this was baffling. Why would anyone choose tyranny over liberty? But the reality on the ground in the North was far more complicated than freedom versus the king. The first major reason is something most Americans never learn in school: the Quebec Act of 1774. Before the Revolution, the British had captured Canada from the French. Now they were ruling over thousands of French Catholics. To keep them from rebelling, the British king did something radical. He gave them religious freedom and allowed them to keep their French civil laws. For the French Canadians, this was a great deal. But for the 13 colonies, they were furious. The fiercely Protestant New Englanders saw this pro-Catholic law as one of the intolerable acts. So here was the dilemma for the Canadians. If they joined the American Revolution, they would be joining a group of people who openly hated their religion and their language. To the French in Quebec, the British king was a safer bet than the angry mobs of Boston. When diplomacy failed, George Washington decided to use force. In the winter of 1775, the Americans launched a daring two-pronged invasion of Canada. General Richard Montgomery and a young, brilliant officer named Benedict Arnold, before he became a traitor, led their troops through the freezing wilderness of Maine. Their goal? Capture Montreal and Quebec City. This is where history almost changed forever. Montgomery actually captured Montreal. The Americans were halfway there. But then came the Battle of Quebec on New Year's Eve, 1775. In a blinding snowstorm, the Americans attacked. Montgomery was killed instantly. Benedict Arnold was shot in the leg. The Continental Army, starving, frozen, and riddled with smallpox, was forced to retreat. It was one of the most disastrous defeats of the war. If that snowstorm hadn't happened, or if Montgomery had lived, the border we see today might not exist. The final nail in the coffin for a united North America was the people. Not everyone in the 13 colonies wanted to fight the king. Tens of thousands of people remained loyalists. During and after the war, these people were harassed, their homes were burned, and they were treated as traitors. Where did they go? They fled north. Over 40,000 loyalists moved to Canada, bringing with them a deep, burning resentment toward the United States. They didn't see America as a land of liberty. They saw it as a land of violent mobs. These refugees transformed Canada from a French-dominated territory into a British loyal stronghold. They built the foundation of a nation that defined itself specifically by not being American. The U.S. tried one last time in 1812. Thomas Jefferson famously said that the conquest of Canada would be a mere matter of marching. He was wrong. By 1812, the identity of Canada had solidified. English speakers, French speakers, and indigenous tribes united to push the Americans back. They even marched down to Washington, D.C., and burned the White House to the ground in retaliation. That war proved that Canada wasn't just a British leftover, it was a country in its own right. Today, the border between the U.S. and Canada is the longest undefended border in the world. We are allies, trading partners, and friends. But the 13th colony remains its own sovereign land because of a snowstorm in 1775, a religious law in 1774, and the thousands of refugees who found a home under the North Star. Canada didn't fail to join the revolution. It chose a different path, a path of evolution rather than revolution. What do you think? Would a united North America have been the greatest superpower in human history? Or would the internal tensions have torn it apart long ago? If you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden history of our continent, hit that like button and subscribe to Epochs of America. There are so many more stories waiting to be told.